We spend our whole lives looking for the right answers. But what if the path to wisdom wasn't about finding the right answer, but about realizing that all answers are actually a kind of trap? Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating and pretty radical school of thought called the Sanlun School. These guys challenged the very act of believing in anything. Okay, so let's just jump right in. We all have beliefs, right? About everything. Politics, who we are, how the world is supposed to work. But have you ever stopped to think that maybe the very act of holding on to a belief, any belief, is the thing that's trapping you? That's the huge question these Sanlun masters wanted us to grapple with.
And this quote from the 6th century Master Ji Zang just nails it. He says, "If there is attachment, there is bondage." He argued our suffering doesn't really come from the world outside, but from our mental attachment to ideas about it. The second we cling to a concept, this is good, that's bad, this is real, that's unreal, boom, we've just built the walls of our own prison.
Now, the Sanlun thinkers didn't just see this as some kind of bad habit. They actually framed it as a universal sickness, a kind of cognitive illness that they thought pretty much affects all of us. And it's what leads to all the conflict, the anxiety, and just a fundamental misunderstanding of what reality even is. So for the Sanlun school, the problem isn't that there are good and bad things out there. The real problem is us creating these super rigid mental boxes for everything and then chaining ourselves to them. It's this intellectual rigidity, this desperate need for things to be fixed and certain, that they believed fuels that whole cycle of human suffering. All right, so if clinging to ideas is the sickness, what's the cure? This is where it gets really interesting because the Sanlun school offers a very specific and honestly a pretty radical kind of philosophical medicine. The school's name, Sanlun, literally just means 3 treatises. And they took the work of this absolutely brilliant Indian philosopher named Nagarjuna and developed this unique therapeutic method from it. Their goal? It wasn't to build a new, better, correct system of belief, no way. It was to systematically take apart every single one. Their whole method really boils down to this one phrase: refute the deviant, reveal the correct. Now, that word deviant sounds pretty intense, right? But it doesn't mean evil or bad. It just means any view that's one-sided, that's fixed, that's partial. And revealing the correct? Well, that's not about finding a shiny new truth to believe in. It's about uncovering the incredible freedom that comes when you finally stop clinging to any viewpoint. And get this, they applied this tool absolutely everywhere. They used it to deconstruct ideas from other philosophies, like Taoism. They pointed out the hidden attachments in other Buddhist schools. And, what I think is the coolest part, they turned it on themselves. They constantly warned their own followers, hey, don't you dare turn our teachings into just another rigid dogma. Okay, I know what you might be thinking right about now. If you're just rejecting everything, doesn't that just mean you believe in nothing? Isn't this just nihilism? Well, the Sanlun masters were way, way ahead of us on that one, and their answer is just incredibly elegant. This is the classic objection, right? If you tell someone their belief in existence is a trap, aren't you just trying to sell them on a belief in non-existence? Are you just trading one prison cell for another? This is where the Sanlun school hits us with this powerful metaphor. Think about it like this. The teaching of non-existence or emptiness, it's not some final truth. It's a specific medicine for a specific sickness. The sickness is clinging to the idea of a fixed existence. The medicine is the concept of is not. And this is summed up so perfectly in their texts. When the sickness is cured, the medicine is discarded. I mean, it's just that simple, isn't it? You don't keep taking antibiotics after you're healthy. That would be crazy. So once that attachment to is gone, the medicine, that whole concept of is not, you just throw it away. See, the goal isn't to believe in nothing. It's to be free from the need to believe in anything fixed. Okay, fair enough. But here's another great question. If the whole point is to get rid of all labels, why are you using labels like deviant and correct? Doesn't that kind of contradict your whole point? And the answer is just so clever. They'd say, these terms are just temporary tools. They're like a ladder you use to get up on a roof. You only call the process of letting go correct when you compare it to the state of clinging, which you call deviant. But once you're on the roof, you don't keep hauling the ladder around with you, right? The label correct has done its job, so you discard it before it becomes a new thing to get attached to. So what does this cured state even look like? I mean, if you're not clinging to any ideas, how do you get through your day? This is where the Sanlun school describes their ultimate goal, a state of just profound intellectual and spiritual freedom. They call this the correct view. But listen, it's not a viewpoint. It's not like a snapshot you take of reality and say, that's it. It's more like an open window. It's this dynamic, fluid way of seeing the world directly without having to filter it through all your old mental boxes. And they break this down into two parts, which I think is really helpful. First, there's substance. That's the deep, gut-level realization that reality itself is way beyond our simple labels. Then there's function. That's how you act based on that realization. For instance, you know the word water isn't actually wet, right? That's substance. But you still use the word water to ask for a drink. That's function. You're using the labels to get by, but with this kind of lightness, knowing they're just tools, not the real thing. A really great way to think about this today is the map and the territory. Most of us were prisoners of our maps, our beliefs, our ideologies. We completely mistake the map for the actual territory. The correct view is when you finally realize the map is just a tool. Yeah, it's helpful for getting around, but the real point is to experience the vast, unlabeled, living territory of reality itself. And that really brings us to the heart of it all. This whole Sanlun philosophy, it's not some ancient, dusty, intellectual exercise. It's a direct challenge to how we live our lives, right now. So it leaves us with a really practical and maybe a little provocative question. Think about all the labels you use every day, for yourself, for other people, for the world. Which one of those, if you just held it a little more loosely, what if that's the one that could set you free?